Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. 5 breakout players for the Florida Gators heading into the 2024 season. Now, with these 5 players, I took a look at guys that were on this roster in 2023 and that you kind of saw some good things from, and really guys that I'm expecting to break out in 2024. Y'all know I'm a massive fan of some of the freshmen that are coming into this program, even a bigger fan of some of the talent that's coming in through the transfer portal. I wanted to focus on guys that were on this roster in 2023 that I think we see some strides in 2024. Super excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to the Florida Gator fans. Y'all know this is a program that I love talking about. The amount of support you guys continue to show the boys, whether we're talking high school recruiting, transfer portal, that stuff means the absolute world. Can't thank y'all enough. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, for this particular episode, I would love to hear some breakout candidates that you guys have in mind. Drop them in the comment section. I learned a ton from you guys. I love talking ball with you guys in the comment section. So I'd love to hear from you guys. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And right off the bat, I'm going to push the envelope in terms of breakout candidates. And I'm going to go to running back Montell Johnson. I'll tell you why. Montell Johnson was phenomenal in 2023, right? Over 800 rushing yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 3.4 yards after contact per carry. Montell Johnson fits exactly what Billy Napier wants to do in terms of running the football. And the reason I'm pointing to Montell Johnson as a potential breakout candidate is I think he's a guy that benefits from a higher workload in 2024. Right, with him splitting carries with Trevor Etienne, like you saw Montell Johnson not really be able to utilize what I think is his best asset, and that is the physicality in which he runs the football with. This is a guy that defenses do not want to tackle 20-plus times a game. And you take a look at Montell Johnson, he was a guy that got better in the fourth quarter, got better with more carries. The 2 games that he had 18-plus carries, both of those games, he went over 100 yards. He's a guy that I think is kind of wears down defenses. And with the increased workload that I think we expect to see Montell Johnson take on, I think you're going to see Montell Johnson be a guy that was an 800-yard rusher last year. I think you could see a 1,300 rusher in Montell Johnson in that 2024 year, not to mention, 30 catches for over 230 yards as a pass catcher, a guy that can get involved in the offense in a variety of different ways. I'm fired up to see what Montell Johnson looks like as a guy that might be getting plus 250 carries this season in 2024. Next name I want to shout out, and another guy that if you guys listen to some of the stuff I talk about in terms of the recruiting trail, Najee Harris, a guy that I absolutely love coming in as a freshman, started that game against Charlotte. I went back and watched that film. This is a guy, it kind of reminds you a little bit of Osiris Torrance in terms of, hey, I'm just going to move guys off the line of scrimmage, physically impose my will on defensive linemen in that run game, the prototypical road grader, and a guy that you saw as a true freshman move big bodies around. I'm really excited to see what year 2 looks like for Najee Harris, a guy that, you lose Micah, you lose a guy like Richie Leonard. Those guys were solid veterans. I think Najee Harris's ceiling, what he can be in this offense, is much, much higher, right? You trusted a guy like Richie Leonard. He was solid. I don't think any Florida fans would say Richie Leonard was anything more than solid. I think Najee Harris can be a guy that helps Florida get this run game going, a guy that physically imposes himself on opposing defensive linemen, and a guy that is a sneaky good athlete for his size and pass protection. I'm really excited to see what Najee Harris brings to the table, especially from what you saw year 1 as a freshman. What does it look like going into year 2, a full offseason under his belt? Massive breakout candidate in my mind. Last guy we want to go to, and you saw flashes of breakouts for Arles Bingham. You never really saw him, I guess, put it together through a longer stretch of the season. And this is a guy that, again, what excites me the most is he's a young guy. He's only going into year 3, who was a wide receiver coming out of high school, kind of just a freak athlete. You don't see many tight ends that have the movement skills that Arles Bingham has, combined with the size, and you're starting to see him acclimate a little bit to that tight end position. What stands out to me with Arles Bingham, he's phenomenal after the catch. And this is a guy that you look at some of the best tight ends, not only at the college level, but the NFL level. What do you see those tight ends do? One, they can create separation, but after the catch, they're making linebackers miss. They're bouncing off safeties and defensive backs trying to tackle. And I see Arles Bingham as a matchup nightmare as a pass catcher, a guy that I think improves in the run game in terms of his blocking. Again, a guy that played wide receiver, was listed as an athlete coming out of high school, going into year 3 at that tight end position. I think used to kind of that bigger body. He's getting better at using his frame. I think you're seeing this was a position that going back 12 months ago, I was super concerned about the tight end group for Florida heading into 2023. Arles Bingham absolutely broke out, but I think he's going to be one of the better tight ends that you see in the SEC heading into that 2024 year. Super fired up about Arles Bingham. Now, going to the defensive side of the football, the Florida Gator fans that have been rocking with the fellas for the last 12 months probably already knew who we were going to talk about, and that is defensive lineman Kelby Collins, who you saw how physically imposing he was as a freshman. Kind of similar conversation to Najee Harris. You don't see many freshmen come in along the line of scrimmage and be as physically dominant as Kelby Collins was, but you also saw that he was a freshman, right? A limited kind of toolkit in terms of the pass rush, a guy that was really good in the run game. I mean, he was very good at stacking offensive linemen, shedding blocks, being disruptive. What I'm most excited for Kelby Collins going into year 2 for this Florida Gators program is a little bit more juice as a pass rusher, a guy that had 15 hurries, a 6.3% pass rush win rate, solid numbers. I think Kelby Collins can be northward of 15% pass rush win rate. I think he can be a guy that gets 20-plus hurries on the year. I would like to see them use him a little bit more on the edge as much as they were kicking him inside at times. And he's a guy that can work inside because of how strong and how big he is. But I think the combination of his athleticism for his size and the ability to just collapse pockets, getting into tackles, I would like to see Kelby Collins sit more on the edge because he is probably one of your better pass rushers on this roster. Go put him in spots that he's going to be able to utilize those pass rush abilities. And I think at the edge is probably the spot where you see that. Kelby Collins, again, you saw him be physically imposing, but you didn't see a very refined, you didn't see a pass rusher with a lot of nuance. What does it, what does it look like when you get a little bit more nuance with Kelby Collins? Super excited about that. And then last guy I want to talk about, a guy that I think just kind of flew under the radar even for me, but going back and watching some film of that 2023 season, Devin Moore towards the end of the year was absolutely phenomenal for the Florida Gators. Quite frankly, much better than Jalen Kimber. I would argue he was the best cornerback on this roster in 2023. You take a look at some of the numbers, 12 targets, only gave up 5 catches for only 30 yards. A guy that kind of checks all the boxes that you want and was listed as a safety coming out of high school because of those concerns of how fluid can he be at that length. He's pretty damn fluid. And a guy that, I mean, you take a look at some of the boxes that you want to check. One, length, physically imposing guy. Absolutely. He has the ability to run with wide receivers down the field, really physical along the line of scrimmage, putting his hands on wide receivers, and a really good tackler, right? Only missed 12% of his tackles. That was a massive problem for this Florida Gators defense in 2023. Devin Moore, a big boundary cornerback that is a phenomenal tackler. Now, he's going to have some competition, right? You bring in a guy like Triquez Bridges, who I think is going to at least compete for that cornerback spot. Not really sure where he slots in on that defense. But I think Devin Moore and Jason Marshall has the potential to be a really good cornerback duo for the Florida Gators in 2024. This is what excites me the most about this team. And many of the Florida Gator fans who've been listening for the last couple months, I have been critical of Billy Napier during his first 2 years. This is the year where you look at this roster, and a lot of people like to drag the Florida Gators, saying Billy Napier's on the hot seat. Billy Napier is certainly on the hot seat, but what I think people need to understand is this is an extremely talented roster heading into 2024, and this is the year that Billy Napier has to kind of show people that, hey, I can not only recruit, but I can develop my talent, and I can start putting it on the field, winning football games on Saturdays. There's a lot of young talent, a lot of breakout player candidates for this roster. Really excited to see if these guys can take that step in 2024. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, some breakout players. Talk to y'all later. Peace.